Welcome back to yet another episode of Road Noise, and glad you're hanging out with us. You just missed the first 30 minutes of us just catching up and sharing stories. But welcome to this part of the conversation. We're glad you're here, and yeah, we didn't actually we didn't talk much about where we're headed to tonight. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But I'm curious where we pointing it this time.
Hey, let's head to the big city. I'm not going to tell you which big city, but one of the larger ones in our nation. I don't know why, but I've just never been able to figure out some people. Like, who is it and where did this strange idea ever come from that in order to be a quote real missionary, you have to go to a foreign country, you have to speak a different language than English, you have to wear different clothing, or you go to people that wear different clothing, or maybe don't wear any clothes at all, and you go there and start a church because that's what a real missionary does. Well, for your mom and I, we both felt called into ministry at relatively young ages, and we've talked about that in previous broadcasts, but we've never felt called to go to any other country. Now, God is blessed, and at least for myself, I've been to, I think it's 8 countries, but we haven't gone there as missionaries, to live there and start a church. The only language we speak has been English. And anyway, so this concept of being a missionary and going overseas and starting a church is good because if you're willing to do that, there's people in churches that will financially support you. But if you don't do that and you just decide to stay in the United States and speak English and do children's ministry where you never started a church, it's been far more difficult to get support than any other quote missionary. But nevertheless, God has blessed and met all of our needs over those years. But the concept of the only place you can be a missionary is overseas, which takes us to this very large city here in the United States, where we're doing a vacation Bible school. Like I said, it's one of the larger cities. And in fact, it's the capital of this particular state that we're talking about. And typically, the capital in a state is one of the larger cities in that state. Because of all the political activity and so forth, that's a hub in and of itself as far as jobs. And those areas typically attract businesses, manufacturing and retail. I mean, it attracts people. So in my mind, I would like to think that here in the United States, in large cities especially, there would be numerous churches and churches that actually preach and share the gospel. But yet, here we are doing a vacation Bible school at a church, good church, and they had done a fairly decent job of getting the word out that we were going to be there with our puppets and everything. And any church that does that, I'll be perfectly honest, kids show up. I mean, kids find out, hey, there's a free puppet show. There's going to be magic. There's going to be juggling. There's going to be, you know, if the word gets out, kids will show up. And so the very first day, they had a lot of kids, and they had a lot of unchurched kids that had never been to that church before, but they showed up because. Well, I'm excited when kids are there because I know they're going to hear the gospel. And so we got all these kids, brand new kids, that have shown up. And the first program that we're going to do, it has the gospel message and ends with Jesus dying on the cross, was buried, and rose again the third day. And so, I mean, that's how we're starting this vacation Bible school. Well, back in the day, a long time ago, we were introduced to this stuff called Cenafelt. And really, what it was is kind of glorified flannel graph lessons. Yeah, flannel graph is the word I was looking for. But these weren't flannel graph lessons like some churches were using at the time. These were beautiful things. I mean, this was flannel graph on steroids. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous stuff. It was also very expensive stuff, but it filled a real need for us. Because when we designed and built our big puppet stage, no, even before that, um, yeah, with our very first puppet stage, the intent was we had a section of the stage where we wanted to do chalk drawings. And we had the board, we had all the chalk, including the invisible chalk. We had the black lights for it. And there was just one ingredient that we're missing, and that was an artist. Now, I knew that I wasn't going to be the one doing that because I'm not gifted in that area. Now, your mom is. And so we'd kind of thought that, okay, when she has time, she can work on different scenes and she could do this. But we had so much going on that she really didn't have time to do that. But it was right at that time that we were introduced to these Cenafelts. And like I said, that really fit perfectly because instead of having to do chalk drawing, all we had to do was put these pieces of very nice felt up on a board, turn the black light on, and beautiful scenery. Do it fast and effective. And so that's what we're using. Now, Cenafelt was expensive, and we never ended up with a whole lot of them, but we would try to add one. In our early years, we tried to add one every year to get a new one. But while we're doing that, Cenafelt went for sale. And they sent out a notice that, we're selling the company and yada, yada. And they were being produced right here in Michigan. And so when we got that letter, it's like, no, we can't let this happen. I mean, these are beautiful things. They're, yeah, they're a little expensive, but yeah, we can't let this happen. And so I contacted them and made an appointment to go and look at their facility and to talk to them about what would it cost for us to buy that. Okay, remember, we still don't really have an artist, but your Uncle Steve is very artistic. And so we mentioned it to Steve. Said, "Hey, Steve, here's what we're getting from this company. Could you do that?" And he looks at what we had, and well, yeah, that's not hard. And so we took Steve with us to look at the potential of buying the company. Well, the short version of that is the Cenafelts by themselves were expensive, but if you want to buy the whole company, yeah. So it was like that's never going to happen. We don't have that kind of money, and we're certainly not going to approach a bank about getting a loan that size, and hope we can pay that off. So, needless to say, we never bought the company. Someone else did eventually buy the company, and they ran it for a very, very short time, and then they went out of business. And so today, they're pretty much collector's items. There's still some out there that you can find, that people have that laying around they're not using anymore. And I'd love to have more of them, even though we're not using the ones we have. But let's get back to the story. The very last thing that we do in our program is one of these Cenafelts. And it's a beautiful thing, and hopefully maybe I can post a picture of what it looks like on this podcast. So if you're on, where would that be? On YouTube, I guess maybe I can post a picture of it. But anyway, it's a crucifixion scene. You've got Jesus on the center cross, and you got the two thieves, one on the right, one on the left. You know, beautiful thing. You turn the black light on, and I mean, it's just, yeah. And that's pretty much where we end the program. No sooner dismissed the kids. Now remember, this is the first day. These kids have come from all over town. Dismiss the kids, and this one young boy comes up to me and wants to know why was it they did that to the man wearing the diaper. He had never heard about Jesus. And so I was able to sit down there in about the front row pew where we can sit right there and look at that picture and explain who Jesus was and so forth. Folks, that's why for 52 years we've been doing what we do. There are still kids, there are still people right here in the United States that don't know about Jesus. Hey, I'm not putting down if someone wants to be a missionary and go overseas and learn a different language and wear different clothes or whatever they want to do and start a church. Nothing wrong with that. But we still need to reach boys and girls, moms and dads right here where we live. Acts chapter 1, verse 8. We are to be witnesses where? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the rest of the world. Let's not miss out on Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. These are the local towns, cities, and the country that we live in. And I've always thought it kind of interesting that those 4 areas would be listed in that order. Mission starts at home. It can spread over the world, but it needs to start right where every one of us live. So that's where I wanted to take us today. A
Yeah.
capital that is still in need of a Savior.
Right on. What a great reminder. Yep. You do not have to look far outside of your front door to find a mission field. Yep.
Well, like I mentioned, 52 years, man, we've been at this. And here I am, 77 years old, and there's been people that I've known for years that they've been retired for a long time. And occasionally, some of these people will send me a message or something about, in fact, I got a phone call today. A phone call today. And a gentleman who lives on the West Coast basically wanting to know, are you still doing meetings?
Yep.
It's like, yeah. Yeah, so 52 years and we're still going. Retirement, is that ever in my future? I can't really see it. I've never really planned on retirement, and I figure as long as God gives me the strength and keeps my body and mind healthy enough, I want to keep going. But I thought about making a joke about retirement, but it didn't work.
Mm, I feel like a sucker every time.
Well, that's all I got for us tonight.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's not retire this anytime soon.
By the way, last week I mentioned the fact of, my grandmother used to say, if I told you,
Yeah.
let me tell the story again.
Yeah.
I realized after we did that podcast last week, I had told that story before
Oh
about
yeah.
grandmother
Yeah.
saying, yeah, let me tell it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So remind me never to tell that again.
No,
Okay,
no.
because I've already shared that story twice.
I'm just gonna keep letting you tell it. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
great. All
Well,
right,
let's
well,
park
hey,
it and get on down the road. We've
that
got another
sounds good.
story next week.
Sounds good. We'll pick it up then.